Welcome to our Master of Public Policy info session. We are unfortunately doing it online like everything is these days, but we'd like to provide an overview of the two different Master of Public Policy programs that we have here at the University of Auckland. So I'll give a general overview, and then I'll be joined by Dr. Timothy Fadgen, who runs the online and works in the online Master of Public Policy program. And then we'll be joined by a panel of current and former students. So thank you very much for tuning in. So Madison Salter, Gotami Sitaparam, and Eddie Tuivai. So we'll be doing that in about 25 minutes. So just moving forward, if any of you have questions, you can put them in the chat function in Zoom. We are going to be recording this and posting it on the Public Policy Institute's website. So if you miss it, you can tune in down the road. So yeah, we look forward to your questions and comments. So first of all, people might wonder, what is public policy? Why would you do a degree in public policy, and what's the attraction? And just pulling from the Oxford English Dictionary, what we're really interested in is government decision-making, and government decision-making in conjunction with the range of different actors in society. So social movement actors and corporate actors, international governmental organizations. So the kinds of pressures that shape decision-making that address some of the most critical challenges that we have today. So the public pertaining to the people as a whole, our public interests. What we're not interested in studying in public policy is necessarily corporate policy or all sorts of other policies that can be made in society, but that centralized government decision making and what makes it effective and ineffective, or why some things are brought onto the table and others not. So the course of action adopted and pursued by governments, parties, and rulers. So a number of the kind of public policies that our students study in the master's program our students in the on-campus program are drawn from around the world and also here in New Zealand. So this issue of why governments prioritize some problems, like COVID lockdowns, for example, or the COVID-19 virus, and ignore others. Things like housing, social housing, addressing issues of immigration. We have a referendum coming up in New Zealand on end-of-life choice and cannabis. So why now? Why are these things that we're trying to make decisions about, and why is a referendum the option that we're taking, as opposed to governments just legislating something to be legal or not? So why do governments take the actions they do, and are they effective? What constitutes a successful policy or not? So as I said, we have two different programs for studying public policies here at the University of Auckland. We have an on-campus program and an online program that just launched last year, I believe. It might have even been this year, very recently, which is excellent timing, I have to say, as we move forward with the uncertainty we're living in right now. So with the on-campus MPP, you do your study physically when we're not in lockdowns at the University of Auckland. Some things that distinguish it from the online is that it's open to both international and domestic students. You can do your enrollment either part-time or full-time. You take a combination of core courses and electives, and both and different options of it have research components. So you can do a larger research component with a thesis, or a smaller research component with a dissertation. And you'll see there's a table here on the right-hand side. And essentially, if a student is interested in doing the MPP and they already have an honors degree in something like politics, policy, or sociology, they can go into the first two rows options here, the TOT 120 point, and essentially that's a 1-year full-time program or 4 years part-time program. Students in the 120 point program, the TOT ones have more coursework and a smaller dissertation component. The research ones have that larger thesis component. So you'll see those differences here. So a taught 120-point MPP has 4 core courses and a 45-point dissertation. The dissertations allow you to work on a supervised research project with an academic who may or may not be in politics or public policy, but sometimes we have supervisors come from education or sociology, geography, environmental studies, whatever the research area is that you're really interested in pursuing. The 180-point programs, these 2 rows down below, these are for students who haven't done an honors year or are coming from disciplines that don't have a large grounding in government or politics or policy. So these are 1.5-year programs that you can do straight from undergraduate without taking honors. You can also do them part-time or full-time. And the other big difference here in the coursework, you notice that 4C, that's just my shorthand for core courses. So someone doing the 1.5 year long taught 180-point Master of Public Policy takes the 4 core courses that someone in the 1-year program, but they also get to take 5 elective classes. So they do the same size of a dissertation, but they also take electives from postgraduate classes from across the university. So if you know you want to study public policy, but you're kind of interested in education policy, you can take classes in education. If you're kind of interested in development studies or gender studies, you can take classes in those things as well. So supplementing a really multidisciplinary background. So we want you to do these core understanding what public policy is. You get that in the coursework. We want to develop your research skills. So that's the dissertation or thesis component. And with the longer programs, you get to take these electives from across the university. Now with that information, again, at any time you can ask questions in the chat. But with that information, many students who contact me about the on-campus program ask, well, okay, I know I need to do the 180-point. How do I decide between the research and the taught? Why would I do one versus the other? And the answer is simply that if you know that you're fairly focused on what you want to study and you're pretty sure you want to do a PhD or more research-focused work afterwards, then the research option is the one that is probably best suited for you. Now that said, in New Zealand, the 45-point dissertations that are part of our taught research component still allow students to progress to PhD. So many students may just want to do the Masters of Public Policy and then go work in policy. And we'll talk a little bit after about the kinds of jobs that you end up in. But for those students, the taught is definitely the best option. Okay, so if you think you're pretty sure you're focused on a research area and you want to do a PhD, go with the research option. If not, the taught option. And that taught 180-point is definitely our most popular. So of the core courses that all our MPP students take, they all take Policy 701, which is analysis and evaluation. It's kind of your introduction to public policy at the graduate level. You study how you would analyze different kinds of policies, what criteria you make these decisions based on. You take a core course, all our students do, in the economics of policy. You take a core course in advanced research skills, so statistical skills and also qualitative analysis. And you take a comparative public policy class, which looks at how policies around the world transfer from place to place, and how you would even go about knowing whether it's a valid comparison to bring policies, let's say, from the UK or Australia or Singapore and apply them here in New Zealand or vice versa. When is that valid and how would we know? And for students who are in the research stream, they also take another class, a research design class entitled Politics 701. So those are the main core courses. And as I said, if you're in the 1.5 year long program in particular and the taught options, you also get to take electives from across the university. So some of the popular electives that our students take are in Māori studies, development studies, politics. So one of the electives you can take is an internship class where actually our students go and work with organizations once a week and then write a research report. And those organizations can be NGOs, they can be local councils, they can be a wide range of government or non-government groups, and the students work in a policy research area with them. So geography, sociology, education, health and population health, social work, and every once in a while students come to me as the on-campus coordinator and ask, well, are there any other ones I can take? And if there's a policy focus of the class anywhere across the university, generally we're fine with that. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of interdisciplinary breadth, which is a real strength of the program. So at this point, I'm going to pass the mic, as it were, to Dr. Fadjan, and he's going to give an overview of the online MPP, which has some really distinct features.
Excuse me. Thanks, Julie. Kia ora, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. Yeah, I'm really happy to talk to you today about the online MPP. And I think with Julie's overview, I think you've got a good snapshot of kind of the study of public policy and how it works and our approach to it here at the University of Auckland. And as you'll see on the screen in front of you, for the online MPP, there's a couple of distinctions just to be aware of. The first one is that the program for the online MPP is 2 years in length, but it's considered part-time, which fits in well for many of our students now who are, obviously working in various places throughout the country, in various government positions, non-government organizations, people that are maybe thinking of a career change or looking just to upskill and to move up in their current organization. So the courses are asynchronous in the sense that we don't have a dedicated meeting time each week, so it's easier for you with your work to get, or your family commitments, to do your coursework in the morning. All the material is uploaded before the semester begins, and so you can keep up with your studies that way. The readings are available through, in most cases, directly through the university's library, which you'll all have access to. Pardon me. And then some courses will have textbooks, and that material, of course, will be available to you. But each week, you'll have interaction with your lecturers. So as Julie mentioned, I co-teach with Jennifer Curtin, a professor here at the university who heads up the Public Policy Institute and is actually the online MPP coordinator. We are teaching the course right now, Policy 741, which you'll see, I think there's Government and Policy, New Zealand Compared. I teach most of the content into policy design, analysis, and implementation, which is the online version of what Julie described to you as Policy 701 on campus. And the other courses you see there, let me say it this way. You take one of these courses each semester. They're worth 30 points. So they're a little bit more writing, let's say, than the on-campus students who may be taking they might be taking policy analysis in an elective course. There are no electives for the online MPP. So you follow the curriculum as you see there, the core courses. Where you'll have an opportunity to kind of branch out and work on something that is of particular interest to you is when we get into the dissertation. So the dissertation, as Julie explained, is almost the same for you if you choose the online MPP option as your on-campus counterparts. I coordinate the dissertation for the online and the on-campus MPP students, so I'll work with you to identify a suitable faculty member to supervise your project. And it could be somebody that you've worked with along the way that you have particular interest in. You can approach them yourself. Or you can take a look across at the electives. If there's somebody doing research in an area that's of interest to you, we can arrange the dissertation supervision with that member of faculty if they're available. The other course that I'd like to just draw your attention to, and I'm involved in both the on-campus version and the online version, is Policy and Practice, or the externship. So Julie mentioned before the elective, which is ongoing at the moment right now, where we have students out with various NGOs, government ministries, council, doing policy projects, policy work. For you, of course, because as we just said, many of you have day jobs, so the externship is set up a bit differently. The vision for this program is that you would be working in a team as part of a virtual consultancy, working on a policy project for an organization that either myself or Jennifer will arrange in advance, and you get to that in just about your last semester, well, your second to last semester of work. So every student has an opportunity to do that. We don't do individual projects for that. We'll be organizing that, but we'll be coordinating with the students in the program about what that looks like. So other than that, as you can see, the course lineup is essentially the same. It's somewhat different names, and the content is a bit different because of the way that the points work for the online MPP and the absence of electives that you'll do. But I can say from teaching, the program has grown from 11 students in the first semester to 54 students in the second semester. So it's become quite popular within just 2 semesters. We're just in our second semester now. The next intake, I think, starts in March. So semester 1 of next year will be if you're interested and ready to go, that would be your next opportunity to join the online MPP. So I'm, of course, happy to answer any questions that you have. If I missed something here, please let me know. And I'm also available offline if you have individual questions about this and you want to just send an email to me. But other than that, I will turn it back to Julie, and I am available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So Tim can probably speak to this as well, but our students go off. We're immensely proud of our Masters of Public Policy students, and they go off to do a very wide range of policy jobs, again, in government and outside government all around the world. So from democracy services work at the university, or at the university. Some do actually end up working at the university, but some with Auckland Council, division chief for policy formulation, so different ministries, so Treasury, Ministry for the Environment here in New Zealand, but then also working in governments around the world. Some have gone on to be journalists, researchers, gone on to do PhDs, so there's a wide range of jobs, that the kind of skills you get. And one of the things that we hear from employers in particular is that the applied research skills, the group work, and the kind of economic and statistical training, as well as an understanding of the institutions of government, this combination of critical analysis, statistical skills are really, really valuable. So these are things, though, that can transfer from one organization to another, and they're not really limited just to working in government. So that's something that is interesting. And also, you could go on to PhD study in public policy as well. So I see a couple of questions in there. I'm just going to answer them now before I move forward. So individual questions, there at the end of this presentation, there's email addresses for myself, Julie MacArthur, and also Timothy Fadgen, so you can send questions to us afterwards. You can just Google our names, or you can get those emails from screenshotting the presentation. Is there an ability to transfer between online and in-person MPP? No, not at this point, actually. So you do have to, when you're in the on-campus MPP, you can sometimes transfer between part-time and full-time and things like that. But the online MPP is a totally separate program from, and totally separate design to the online. So you need to make that decision about which will fit best for you beforehand. So I'll just move forward. As Tim mentioned, one of the exciting things as well about doing this kind of study here at the University of Auckland is we have the Public Policy Institute, which does exciting work bringing international kind of leading policy scholars to talk to us about the leading policy developments around the world. It's led by Professor Jennifer Curtin, who you see on the slide there, who does a wide range of different policy research, but on elections, on gender and women's representation in the media. You see her on the media here fairly often. And our students get usually space to work in the Public Policy Institute. And also, so they have access to a lot of this really exciting discussion and debate and research taking place. So there are often students hired to be summer scholars to work on really cutting edge research projects as they're doing their study at the university. So that, combined with being in a pretty great city, having these different options, are some of the reasons that people choose to study public policy with us here at the University of Auckland. So this is the slide I mentioned. So that's with my email address and Professor Curtin's email address. Tim has actually, sorry about that, Tim. Tim has put his in the chat as well, but as I said, you can Google us. We're usually the first hits that you will find. So if there are any other questions, pop them in the chat. If not, I'm going to move on to the second portion of this, which is our Q&A with current and former students. So I thought we'd start with Madison, and the kinds of questions that I'm hoping you guys can answer have to do with what did you study in your undergraduate and what brought you to the MPP program? How have you found it so far in terms of the courses and the study? And any other advice you might have to people considering doing one. So, Madison, feel free to unmute and take it away.
Hey, hi, I'm Maddie or Madison. I did a Bachelor of Arts at Auckland University. I finished in 2017 and I double majored in geography and politics. And then the following year I finished that in 2016, sorry. And then in 2017, I did a Bachelor of Arts honours in geography. But my dissertation in geography was based on policy. So it was the movement of policy from one jurisdiction to the other and sort of how it moved, who moved it, and then what happened when it got here. And I based it on the Housing First policy because it had just started in Auckland. And then I took a couple years off of uni. I worked at NZME. I worked at Disney World in Florida. And then I now work at a engineering firm in the transport team. So that's really fun. And yeah, I was just we were all kind of stuck in home a lot because of COVID. And I've always wanted to do further study. And public policy to me seems like a very practical way of applying knowledge to try to make the world a better place. If that sounds like a bit save the world, I do apologize. So I started this July and so far so good. It's definitely manageable with full-time, because I work full-time. It's definitely manageable with full-time work and it's quite engaging. Like I've found all of the readings and the information that we've learned so far very interesting. And yeah, I think it's really good. I think everyone should do it.
Which version are you in? Are you online, on campus, sorry, 180, 120?
Yep, I'm online 180, so it's the 2-year one. Yep.
Yeah, the online program. Wonderful, thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
That's great. And at any point, if you want to add some things on our panel, just feel free to pop in. Thanks for that. So our next current student is Gautami. Do you want to unmute and let us know similarly? So what did you study in undergrad? What brought you to the MPP? How have you found the program so far? Any things that you think people considering joining it should know about beforehand?
So hi, my name is Gautami. So I'm actually from Perth in Western Australia. So I moved all the way across to come and study at the University of Auckland. So I'm doing the thought program, 180 points. So I've got the 45-point dissertation. And for my bachelor's degree, I did it in Western Australia at Curtin University. I did a bachelor's in literature and cultural studies and professional writing. And so when I graduated, at that point, I went out to the job market. So I was looking for jobs. I had a background as a professional writer. And I realized that most of the people who were, where I was applying to was looking for policy as another sort of added bonus. They wanted me to do their social media. They wanted me to do all of that stuff, but they also wanted me to do policy. So realizing that I had that sort of gap in my skill set, so I went on to do the MPP here. And why all the way in Auckland? There are obviously MPP programs all across the world. I really like the format because I didn't have a background in politics. I did the graduate diploma in arts first before I got into the MPP. And that gave me a real good background in social sciences for me to be able to cope with the course load at the master's level. Whereas I found that when I was looking at similar programs in Australia, they kind of like wanted my money, but they didn't really set me up to be able to accomplish the degree. And so that was a real big difference, that I felt like the University of Auckland took their time with looking at my application, really like looked at my skill set before I got in, and they were very supportive once I got to the University of Auckland. So if anyone's thinking of doing on campus, like, I highly recommend it. Go and see your arts department. The admissions team is really good. The types of people that I think should be doing it, I think anyone who's interested in policy, interested in how the world works, interested in what government does, whether it's from sort of a journalistic standpoint or either as somebody who wants to change policy, I think it would benefit any of those sort of people. Anything else that someone should know? I think that if you're going from a bachelor's to a master's degree, that is quite a big jump and people don't talk about it. And it's the time management, mental health, those sort of things that, you know, you think you got it down when you're in your undergrad, but then you come to the master's sort of time and you're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm taking this course, I'm taking this other course, and you want to perform at the like best level. And I really struggled that first semester with trying to sort of manage my time, because I was also starting a new job to sort of obviously like fund myself while I was here. And so I'd say like definitely watch out for your mental health. Really think about how like have like a game plan going in as to how you're going to cope with everything when you're starting a master's degree. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
That's wonderful advice. Certainly, some of the feedback we get from most students when they start the program is there's a big jump in terms of the volume of readings. It's not just the volume of writing, but it's the volume of readings that you have at the graduate level. And it's great training for policy research and analysis, for example, but yeah, it can be challenging. Thank you. That was so helpful. So our next speaker is a former MPP student, Eddie Tuivai. So I'm really excited to welcome you. And same questions to you, really. What was your journey to the MPP? And then obviously, as a counterpoint to what we've already heard, where have you gone after? And what kind of tips would you give people as they're trying to decide where to go with their graduate studies?
Kia ora, Julie. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this Zoom. What did I study in undergrad? Certainly not what my entire family plus the entire country of Samoa wanted me to study, which was commerce and law. I studied sociology and politics. Favorite sociology papers were Dr. Tracy McIntosh's Death and Dying and Professor Emeritus Maureen Baker's Sociology of Family. My favorite politics paper was Professor Raymond Miller's New Zealand Politics, helped by the fact that he was the most suave dressed, suavest of all the lecturers with a sense of dress and fashion. Moving on now to why I chose to enroll in the Master of Public Policy. I didn't want to go to university. I was a head boy at high school. I did not want to go. So you'll appreciate that I swung from the not sure about university end of the spectrum to university is life and I'm staying here forever. So naturally after the undergraduate and the postgrad dip, I was like, well, what comes next? And at that time, Pacifica representation on the political front was on track to be on par with all the other ethnic minorities, but the policies themselves seemed to be quite a way off in terms of equity, diversity, and so on. So I considered a Master of Public Policy. That coupled with the fact that Jennifer was probably one of the few professors in the department at the time that was able to make sense of what the hell it was that I wanted to study and just ensure that the process was awesome. After the Master of Public Policy, I took a bit of time off and got the travel sort of bug out of me and the whole YOLO, you only live once, and did all that stuff. And then I landed at the Kettering Foundation in Midwest USA, which is a big think tank that focuses on what does it take for democracy to work as it should. It's in over 100 countries around the world, and it focuses on sustained dialogue. I came home from the Midwest. I worked at the US Embassy. After the US Embassy, I came to Council where I am currently. And I think that here at Council is where I've made the most use of my Master of Public Policy. I think the fact that the Master of Public Policy is centered on real life experience, there's no part of that sort of abstract. And that's what I appreciated most. I have an admiration and an absolute respect for the world of academia and research and writing, but it's kind of not really my jam. So the fact that the MPP was very hands-on, Julie spoke of the internship. There were also components of it where diplomats and politicians would come in and speak to you. You'd get policy advisors from across the globe. It was that was the real pull for me. It was real practical. It was hands-on. And now that I'm here at Auckland Council, everything that I learned in the MPP, I'm still applying all these years later. So in terms of the advice that I would give, if you're on this Zoom and you're considering it, sign up, get an MPP, join the elite squad, changing the world one policy at a time.
Oh, we need to bottle that. That's amazing. Thank you. I mean, and that's quite the journey as well. And I think that's something that really unites a lot of people that end up in policy work, actually, is it was no one thing. It's certainly not, my dad did it, my mom did it. It's not like the family business. I think for most people, well, I could speak for myself, but I know for Tim as well, you go through different iterations of trying to figure out how you can answer questions and how you can make a difference in different institutions and things like that. So that was really helpful. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to fire them in the chat. Otherwise, the formal presentation side of our info session on the MPP is done. I'll just wait a second or two and we can stop the recording, but we're not a huge group as well, so if anyone just wants to unmute and ask a question, you're welcome to as well. So there's a question about how are the stats and econ courses? How maths intensive are they? That is an excellent question. So would any of our current students like to address their experience of that?
Yeah, I would definitely, because that was my biggest fear going into the MPP was the stats and econ. Okay, it is achievable, okay? First of all, Timothy Hasseldine, if you get him as your professor, I was so terrified going into econ class. That first day, I was like, that's it, I'm screwed. And my father's an economics and statistics professor, okay? So and I was terrible. And he sort of said, he made it really easy. With the math part of it, econ isn't really math heavy. Like if you have your basic math covered, that would be fine. I think you'll be breezing through the econ part, and just listen to Timothy Hasseldine. He'll tell you what to do. With the statistics, I saw in the chat someone's asking about how math heavy the statistics part of it is. I think in the newest iteration of the course, so the newest stats course that's available, it's less maths heavy compared to doing say Stats 101. So I think in that sense it's a bit different. And the way that they sort of did the modules was a lot easier to grasp versus trying to take just pure stats in Stats 101. So I don't know if that helps people on the math and stats part of it.
Maddie, do you have anything to add about your experience with it?
So I've only just started, so I'm only doing policy
Gotcha.
741. There's a little bit of stats in that, but nothing like that. But yeah, now I'm kind of scared.
Yeah, there's actually been a change. So I can't speak to the online, but since you came through the MPP, you used to have to take Stats 101 in addition, or you used to have it before you came into the program. And now there's a new class, and the stats, as Gautami said, is built into it. So it's tailored for MPP students as opposed to something completely different. Eddie, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's terrific to hear that. I was just typing an essay in the chat function saying that the questions about these papers, they're absolutely fine if you take them when you're supposed to take them. I took Stats 101 8 years out of high school. The summer before my last 30 points, it was do or die. And I started summer school halfway through. Other than that, it sounds like it's not daunting anymore. It's all just seamlessly infused in there. But I think in terms of the usefulness of those papers, the jokes aside, absolutely useful. I mean, I'm working in the voter participation space now. We're understanding these trends and things, and it's just come in handy. So again, there's another shameless plug for MPP. Not one paper of the MPP program is not fit for purpose. It's all fit for purpose. Join the elite squad, sign up, get an MPP.
I just have to say we're not paying him. There's no remuneration in terms of chocolates or books or anything. But no, that's really helpful. I mean, it's helpful to know, but certainly it has changed. So there's another question in the chat. For the internship, do we find it ourselves? Are they organized by the program or somewhere in between? And Eddie should get paid, which actually I have to agree. Sorry. So for the actually, Tim, maybe you can take this into coordinate both the elective internship that isn't for all MPPs, but you can apply to get into it, and the externship for the online program. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. So in neither case do you find it for yourself. I will say the difference is if you're in the on-campus program, you sort of apply to the program almost like you're applying to a job, but it's sort of a generic job, like you're applying with your CV and a cover letter, kind of letting us know what your general kind of area of interest is. And then what I do is I take those away and I sit back in my chair and I think about who could I get that would be a good placement for you based on your interests. And we have an extensive set of contacts that Jennifer Curtin, who ran the internship course before me, developed, and then I have brought some from the non-governmental space. And we're trying to build those every semester to give students a different experience, make adjustments to them as we go. I work closely with the placement supervisors on ensuring that you guys have a good experience in the placement. So you don't really get to come with an internship in mind. You can, of course, we could talk about it if you're in the program, and we may be able to arrange something, because I'm always on the lookout for new placements. For the on-campus students, we haven't actually run it yet. This is still in the future. So I'm in the process of designing that course at the moment, along with the dissertation course. But we're piloting a program in semester one, and we're looking at a couple of candidates right now to sort of, for organizations, I should say, so that students would have basically a predefined project with a set of deliverables similar to the on-campus MPP, and probably like if you were a consultant, what you would find in the real world, so to speak. But there'll be course content, and then we'll work together as a cohort to deliver the product or the output, so to speak, for the organization. We're looking at a government health organization here for semester one, and this would be sort of the step to the full program for you online MPP students down the track. So yeah, that's how that will work.
Yeah, so it is quite different between some internships, right, where you're supposed to find it. I know in my undergraduate training, I was part of this kind of, it was called a co-op degree, but yeah, you had to find employers to hire you. And the models are very different. But here, if you're in, it's set up for you, essentially. You're not job hunting to get your credits for university.
Yeah, and I think there was another question follow-up, so I'd say two things. Yes, to Julie's point, one of the reasons why we do it differently here is because, I don't know about you, Julie, but when I did it, it was the same way. And I've had good internships and really bad ones, like ones where you're making photocopies and grabbing coffees for people. So I've not had an intern in two cycles of running this who's come to me and said they're not giving me enough to do. So it's substantive. You'll get think of it as you're generating something that could be used as a sort of example, a writing sample that you can give to an employer. So we make sure that these placements are aware of the program, understand what our expectations are, and really more to the point, how good you guys all are at that point, so that we don't want to underuse you. So the internship is, for the on-campus, it is somewhat competitive. But the course is capped, I think, at 15, but I make every effort that I can to get everybody placed. So if we go over I can extend the cap. So it is competitive, so you do have to apply, but there haven't been very many instances. This semester was a bit of an aberration because, of course, of COVID. It limited our options for placements. But if you're in the online MPP, everyone will go through the externship program. So that's the a difference between the two.
And I should mention that the difference between the 1 year, 120-point on-campus program is that you don't get electives, and so you're only taking your core courses. Whereas the year and a half long 180-point, the one that you can do straight from undergraduate, that allows you to take electives. And so that's the one that you have the option to do that, the internship program. And just to give you a sense, we have almost 60 students in the MPP program on campus right now. Now, not all of them will be eligible to do the internship because they're not in the 180-point program, or they want to take other things. But yes, it is competitive in the sense that not everyone that wants one gets one in that stream. But yeah, as Tim said, he does, it really depends on how many jobs are out there, how many organizations, and whether we can match people up. So it's not a guarantee. So I would hate for someone to come in and be, deeply disappointed because that's the only reason they were doing it. So hopefully that's helpful.